John and I use empathy interviews a lot to really gauge the needs of our stakeholders and to really come up with a plan. We really like the idea of empathy interviews because you're going back to the user and we're actually asking our students and our families and the teachers that are experiencing this, what's working and what's not. And we're learning how to listen to hear. And we're practicing listening to hear and then taking that information and doing something about it. So coming back, and that's our favorite part of empathy interviews, is coming back, circling back around and coming back to the user, to the students, to the families, to the teachers, to let them know how the information helped in this particular area. Another way that we use it, and then I'll let John add to it, is teach students how to conduct empathy interviews, which I think is the most important part. So we're modeling it, and we could do it with our students as admin, we could do it with our teachers and our families, but having our students learn what empathy is and empathic listening, having them practice it, giving them assignments and opportunities to go to the community and conduct empathy interviews and coming back, just tremendous. And I don't know if you want to add to what we learned from our high schoolers when we conducted some empathy interviews with screens being off. I'll let John take it from here.
Yeah, I mean, we figure you buy a new phone from Apple, you get feedback from Apple. Tell us how we can improve our product. You get a new car within a month. You get, how was the turn radius? Give us feedback. We want to improve our product, but rarely do we seek out input from the user in the system within schools, and that's the students. And so perception data is probably one of the most valuable sets of data. I mean, we're good at looking at test scores and subgroups and all that stuff, but to truly seek to understand the user's experience in our system is invaluable. And so that's where we do love using those empathy interviews. And so it's an open-ended conversation where you try to stay away from those binary questions that could be answered in a simple word. You want to encourage story. So tell me about an experience when something in this virtual environment where it went really well. Tell me an experience where it didn't go so well, and that kind of feedback. So it's called an empathy interview, not a sympathy interview. You're not just sitting there going, oh, that really must have sucked. We're actually moved to change and do something about it. And so when we get into the user's experience, see the world through their lens, their experience that we've created for them, that's when we can change it and truly make it a better experience for all the students. And so this isn't a survey, where it's the very likely to somewhat likely, because I know teachers, if we have to take another survey, we may be moved to violence. I know, I'm telling you. But an empathy interview is just, it's that open-ended conversation. Doesn't have to be scripted, but that we actually act on those conversations that we have. I would also encourage it, admin to teachers. Now that we're coming back in these cohorts, how is this experience? Because I've also seen teachers that have high trust with their principals, and they're feeling just completely bewildered as far as this is the third master schedule change we've had since Christmas break. And so it's if we sought out that input from the teachers in that through empathy interviews as well, we can create better experiences for everyone as well. And so what we learned was one of the earlier on in this in the whole pandemic thing through virtual learning, the one thing that we were hearing a lot of was students aren't sharing their screens. And so we then just assumed, well, it's probably because so-and-so is a high school student sharing a room with their grandmother. They don't want the rest of the students to see. Those are the things we just assumed, or it was connectivity. So we'd give them a hotspot. It was absolutely heartbreaking. These students, time after time, I didn't like the way that I looked. I didn't like looking at myself. It was like,
which
what a blow to the gut that was for us. We weren't expecting that.
Which definitely, well, empathy, just to kind of connect it to the SEL competencies, empathy fits in with social awareness. And so remember, each of these competencies gets deconstructed. You don't just teach social awareness. There's components of social awareness that we're teaching, and empathy is one area. And what kind of emerged from our empathy interviews with teenagers was the self-awareness component, and really going down into that. self-perception and how it could impact their learning, their engagement, their depression, their mental health. Um,
And Stephanie asked a good question too. Did we have universal probing questions or prompts designed? And so you want it to feel authentic. And so that's where you don't want it to be, you know, a situation where you're just like, so tell me about, and you're just breaking rapport by taking notes, but you do want to have something somewhat scripted or planned out, to kind of frame and guide that conversation. So whatever you're seeking to change or that you'd want input from, certainly have a few of those questions. And I this is the part that killed me the most, was silence. To just let that silence happen and sit in that awkwardness of it, because we don't want to force words into their mouth or say, I bet you really miss your friends, don't you? And start probing that in that way. Sit in the silence and encourage them to respond to those open-ended questions.
And I mean, one empathy interview question I'm thinking about is, what's been going well for you? Like what in your either teaching or your classroom environment has seemed to work that you could transition into hybrid or in person maybe. And then you could go into, obviously, because you have to talk about the challenges too, what have been the challenges. So then you could get to a place where I was thinking about this earlier with a group of colleagues of mine. You're not alone. You're not afraid to share that this has been tough. This is hard. Simultaneous teaching is tough. I have a lot more respect for people working at drive-throughs, doing their little, like taking their order while talking to you at the same time and being efficient at both. So that's one thing that I thought of, that I would want teachers to have an opportunity to share what's worked and what hasn't worked. So then we could work together on getting better.
I think even just that those words, the shades of meaning, where it goes to pity, sympathy, empathy, then compassion, where compassion is the action to that empathy. I would say, what would the results that we're seeking to find be? And then that should guide then that question, because if we're not going to have any action to it, then we're really kind of just living in sympathy and not really towards compassion. Compassion is the action behind it.
I think there are two directions that you can go in. One is, how are you feeling about, right? So that's, I think, kind of always a good opening. How are you feeling about teaching both virtual and in person? Or how are you feeling about, coming back to school right now? So just kind of getting to more of that emotional side of it. And then if you want to go the other direction, though, one of my favorite questions to always ask is, regarding, fill in the blank, what's keeping you up at night? And so that, that's, all of us have something that's keeping us up, or that we wake up for me, I call it the wheel of worry, right? I wake up at 2 a.m. and it's like, my brain just like, it's got the 10 different slots for different things I'm worried about, from, my kid to my job to everything else. And it's just kind of going, and wherever it's going to stop, that's what I'm going to worry about. And then it's going to start up again, and then it's going to stop somewhere else. But sometimes what we really need is just tell somebody and start to express what it is that's keeping us up at night. And that allows us to sometimes get to the issues behind the issues. And so I think those two can, how are you feeling about, and, regarding what's keeping you up at night. And those can be really, give us really good insights in, or feel free to ask yourself those questions, but those can give us some good deep insights into really what's going on, behind the issues.